And this is, y'all, I don't know when this happens, but eventually the age of grace will cease. Eventually there is a time where God says, wipe your feet from it.
Flips and tables.
Yeah, just wipe the dust off your feet. You have shown grace. You've tried to help. You've done. And they detest you. But they're not detesting just you. They're detesting me. Wipe the dust off your feet. Let the dead bury their dead. How many of you know Jesus said that? Let the dead bury the dead. And here, it's same verbiage. Let the dying die. And the perishing perish. Let those who are left eat one another's flesh. Y'all, again, for me the picture and the spiritual application is, let them be the carnal, fleshly, depraved, Romans chapter 1, going after things they ought not to go after, and turn them over to themselves. Isn't this a woo pick me up message this morning? Hey,
At verse 9.
Did I get verse 9? Yes.
Well, that's where I...
Perish, yeah. Let those who eat. Those who are left, let them eat. Yeah.
That verse, all kinds of things, government, and everything was going through my mind. But the last thing that went through my mind before I interrupted you was that I so recently heard the doctrine that's out there that everybody's going to be saved and nobody's going to go to any punishment or judgment or anything. This sort of can speak against that.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's time.
A little bit. Yeah. But here's some other New Testament examples. Paul would turn people over to Satan for the destruction of their flesh. Alexander, Mcinnis, turn them over to Satan, turn them over to their flesh. And there is a time to do that. Now, does that mean God has given up on them? That means God has, and again, as long as it's called today, it's the day of salvation. We are in an age of grace. And you've heard me say this time and time again, I believe even in the judgment of God, even when he turns over to, that it is for redemptive purposes. Pride cometh before a fall. I believe the fall is intended for us to look up. Now, come on.
Yes.
But there is a time where okay, you don't want to listen? I'm not going to talk. You're going to do your thing anyway. Why am I wasting my time? I'm not going to cast the pearls before the swine. And there is a time to do that. Both God and God telling his servants, us, there's a time where God may just say, you know what? Just don't approach them with the gospel anymore. Why? Go into all the world and preach the gospel. Yes, that is, you've seen me do it. That is the boat. That is the structure. That is the platform from which we work. But God may lead you to not pray anymore, to not speak about that anymore. And you know what? And here, and I don't know what God's doing. I don't understand it all. But they have never asked you your opinion on anything. They have never asked you why you're doing what, why you go to church. But you have been giving them the gospel, giving them the gospel, giving them the gospel, and God, by his Spirit, just says, time to shut it off. And all of a sudden they say, why aren't you telling me the gospel anymore? What? And all of a sudden, they never gave you, they never responded, they never inquired inquired, they never, and all of a sudden, what is it? And they're inquiring of you. And that may be the thing that gets their attention. That may be the thing that gets their attention. It's when something is given, and then withdrawn. What is it? What did I do? Can I be saved? Can I be helped? Have I gone too far? What is it? Who knows? So I'm just saying, God may have you. Okay, so, but we're talking about a flock. We're talking about a people. And this flock is detesting when the good does come. Because it has been shepherded by bad for so long, and evil has been allowed to take place, that when the good comes, the flock detests. But with this detesting, there's a time where, if you're going to detest me, let the dead bury the dead, the dying die. And then verse 10, I took my staff, called favor, called beauty, called glory, and I broke it. And this beautiful thing that I wanted to do in your life, this beautiful thing that I wanted you to become, the favor that I had bestowed upon you, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm withdrawing my grace. And I broke it, revoking the covenant that I had made with all nations. Now there, you could think, okay, the I is referring to Zechariah, but now to all nations, and so it goes to God, and God uses means, and it looks like this is God talking and saying, then I took my staff called favor, and I broke it, revoking the covenant that I had made with all nations. Verse 11, it was revoked on that day. Interesting, that day. And so the afflicted of the flock who were watching me knew it was the word of the Lord. I told them, verse 12, if you think it best, give me my pay. If you think it best, give me my pay. But if not, keep it. So they paid me 30 pieces of silver.
My God.
Huh. What is this a prophecy of?
Christ.
It's a prophecy of Judas.
Yeah.
Of Judas being paid 30 pieces of silver in order to betray Christ. And the Lord said to me, throw it to the potter, the handsome price at which they priced me. And so the Lord is saying, the handsome price at which they priced me. So what's taking place here is, it looks, now right here, it looks like God's raising up a Judas. That's what it looks like here. I told them, if you think it best, give me my pay, but if not, keep it. So they paid me 30 pieces of silver. Now, New Testament, we know that 30 pieces of silver were paid in order to betray Christ. And it goes on, and we know that this is the price which they priced God at, the betrayal of God at. In verse 13, they said to me, throw it to the potter. That's what Judas ended up doing it, throwing it back into the temple in order to buy the potter's field. And so they paid me the 30 pieces of silver. But I'm going to go ahead and say this, y'all. God knew what Judas would do. When Jesus chose Judas to be one of the apostles, he knew that he was going to betray him. And Jesus, at Father's instruction, because Jesus didn't do anything the Father didn't tell him to do, had him choose a Judas and put him in his midst, that he would be betrayed but it was all for the salvation of the flock. It's all for the salvation of the flock. Now, the flock was all the prophets of old. They were rejecting them. They were stoning them, killing them. And when the vineyard owner sent the son, he said, "Surely they'll honor my son." No, they didn't honor him either. Sounds like a parable, right? See, this is all, y'all, New Testament is fulfillment of Old Testament. Old Testament is looking forward to the New Testament. And so the picture here is that that God raised up a person who was going to be paid 30 pieces of silver in order to betray God. Emily?
Pastor Gary, that verse 11 going back to that day, which
Yes,
is so
revoked on that day. Yeah.
Yes. It can be several little areas in the same scenario there, but can it be when they said God broke that covenant? I don't want that. It's not the right word, but broke that with Israel, with the Jews, when they said, "We have no king but Caesar. Give us Caesar for our king." Is that the day? I mean, then
it can be that
they put a curse on themselves at that time, really.
There's even thought, because looking to the future, and I already made reference to it on AD 70, that the old covenant, they couldn't perform the sacrificial system anymore, and it's a picture of a new covenant coming in. So one covenant brought death, a new covenant is coming in, and we're going to see what's being spoken of here. We've seen in chapter 9, triumphal entry, chapter 10, talking about the victory with the cornerstone. Chapter 11, we're seeing the betrayal of the cornerstone, the betrayal of the one who is bringing salvation. But he's going to bring in new life, a new covenant. Amen. And but revoking the covenant that I had made with all the nations, and even there, what covenant was made prior with all the nations? It could be Abrahamic. I'm not sure, but certainly could be. And that's one of the things with prophetic literature like this. It might have a little bit of application here, a little bit of application there. Let's keep going. So they paid me 30 pieces of silver, and the Lord said to me, "Throw it to the potter in the handsome price that which they priced me." So I took the 30 pieces of silver, threw them into the house of the Lord to the potter. And again, this was fulfilled with Judas in betraying Christ. Verse 14, "Then I broke my second staff, called union, breaking the brotherhood between Judah and Israel." This, again, theologians can point to it being history, but it also, an application of that can be a breaking of union, that natural Israel is separate from spiritual Israel. There is a spiritual Israel and there is a natural Israel. One is God's people, and one, there are God's chosen people, but they have rebelled, rejected, resisted. And God is going to make a distinction between the two. So a lot of different applications. The most basic application is he's going to cause there to be dissension in Israel. Okay? There's going to be dissension in Israel. And I will say one of the biggest divides in Israel is over Christ. One of the biggest divides in Israel is over Christ. You do have a sprinkling, a smattering of Messianic Jews that believe in their Messiah.
Yes.
But then you have this vast secular, and even not only secular, but you have those that adhere to Judaism and an old covenant still. And there's a vast difference between the two. Vast difference. Is there a significance of the 30 pieces of silver? Yes, and it goes back, I believe, to Deuteronomy, and it is what a slave, I believe, you would pay for a slave. Wow. So, yes, and I don't have the reference. I probably could find it pretty quickly, but yeah, you can do some research on it. There is a significance for 30 pieces of silver. It was what you could, again, redeem a person for that amount. Okay, that's 30 pieces of silver. Then I broke my second staff called Union, breaking the brotherhood between Judah and Israel. Then the Lord said to me, take again the equipment of a foolish shepherd. So take the equipment of a foolish shepherd. So he's representing bad leaders, foolish leaders. For I am going to raise up a shepherd over the land who will not care for the lost, or seek the young, or heal the injured, or feed the healthy, but will eat the meat of the choice sheep, tearing off their hoofs. So God is saying, again, in this judgment, I'm going to raise up a leader and leaders. Who was the high priest at the time when Jesus came? Caiaphas. He went right along with the Romans, he wanted the Romans to do his bidding of killing Messiah. And so God was going to raise up an evil shepherd. And he will allow, if that's what the nation wants, if that's what the people want, he will raise up exactly what you want. Watch out, because it's a sad thing a lot of times when people of a depraved heart, depraved mind, want something. But he will give you what you want. And in here, he's saying, I'm going to go ahead and raise up a foolish shepherd who's in the land. And he says, woe to that worthless shepherd who deserts the flock. May the sword strike his arm and his right eye. And may his arm be completely withered and his right eye totally blinded. And I'm going to go ahead and just speak to this in the future. That Herod, that Caiaphas, that those that crucified the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, they were completely blind. They didn't understand, they didn't see what they were doing. That's why Jesus could say, Father, forgive them. They're blind. They don't even know what they're doing.
You gotta read it again, but verse 16, isn't it just the opposite of Jesus speaking in Luke, guys?
Just the opposite.
Or is it, or wherever he says, I've come to heal the sick. Okay.
Exactly. So he's raising up a shepherd that's doing just the opposite of what Jesus, the good shepherd, will do. And so, so the picture has been chapter 9, Jesus coming into the city, triumphant. Chapter 10, that Israel's going to have victory. But then we get chapter 11, and it's like, what are you doing, God? But this is how the victory came. This is how the victory came. They crucified in the next, I believe it's the next chapter, because I've studied them all and they're all flowing together, but we're going to know it's chapter. But we're going to look upon the one that they pierced.
That's right.
Is it chapter 12?
Yes.
We're going to look upon the one they pierced. And that now, in seeing there, that has first advent. They pierced him in his first coming. But it has second advent application also in Revelation chapter 1 verse 7. It's talking about they're going to mourn because he's coming in the clouds, the one they had pierced.
Yeah.
And so Zechariah, again, he's talking to a contemporary audience about contemporary stuff. But all of a sudden his words, they leap and they go back, and it would have first place application going back before they were taken into exile. But yet he's talking about things that certainly took place when Judas was going to betray, and there's evil shepherds in Israel. And so Zechariah, and that's the way prophecy, y'all. Prophecy is hard to pin down in a chronological, systematic fashion because it jumps. It jumps around. And a prophet can be just talking about something, and all of a sudden, you listen to prophecies by Kim Clement, right? Kim Clement did the same thing. All of a sudden, he can be singing a song, talking about something, and what does that mean? Where did that just go? and the only possible application is something in the future.
I was wondering, does this particular chapter forward a lot of creatures that's trying to
Oh yeah, false shepherds that are in it to get rich. Yeah, that definitely. I would use texts out of that to apply to those that are in for gain, because what happened in that day, what happened in Jesus' day with the high priests and the Pharisees and Sadducees of his day, and certainly what we see happening in our day, it all has application, no doubt about it. And it will have application again at Jesus' second coming. Y'all, things are going to get worse. The deception is going to get more deceptive. People will be, how many of you know Thessalonians talks about him turning people over to it and giving them a great delusion. And there will be a day that this all takes place. And that's one of the things, y'all. Revelation is progressive in the sense that you see it fulfilled, but there will be an ultimate fulfillment. There will be an ultimate application. And all through history, you see again, splatterings of it. You see little fulfillments, little manifestations of it. Because, and this is why, because those same spirits that were at work back then, they're at work today. Mm-hmm. And again, it's just getting the intensity, the scope of the fulfillment is getting greater. There are texts that have world scope to them, a universal world scope, and we've never seen that be able to be fulfilled. But now we can see that. And you've heard me say about the false prophet, right? What do I believe the false prophet is? And this is the way I'm going to say it. I believe the spirit